you, and we know it's usually not the best of occasions to meet with each other, but nonetheless, um, we want to thank you, especially the persons who may have known Julian for a while. Close friends and families want to thank you for making the effort to be here this evening. To begin the funeral service, we want to invite you to sing along in one of the songs if you open up your program. It is entitled number 139, See Yourself When All Is New. And as you sing along with the music, pay particular attention to the words of the lyrics of that song, because a lot of what is said there would be mentioned in the funeral service, something that you will really be able to reflect on. So when the music begins, you're all invited to sing along. And you may wish to stand if you can. Please be seated. Shavini Abraham would be presiding over the funeral service, and he had known Julian for quite a while growing up in the area, so no doubt he is well poised in being able to handle this funeral service. We now like to invite him to the podium.
On behalf of the family and the friends of Julian, we want to say thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit and reflect not only on the life of Julian, but also on our own lives at this time. Julian Archibald was born on the 28th of February 1979. He died on the 21st of August, sadly, a couple of days ago. He was just 44 years old. He was the son of Deborah Glasgow, who is now deceased, and his father, Mr. Tyrone Phillip, who I understand is looking on online. We know that you wish you could have been here, but no doubt it will be a difficult time for you as well, Mr. Phillip. He was the grandson of Elizabeth, Archibald, Margaret Phillip, Ricardo, all these individuals deceased. He was the brother of Dale, who is also deceased. He is survived by Trishelle, his daughter, and Jalen, his son. He was a nephew of Yvonne, Althea, and he was the cousin of many. He was a relative of the Archibalds, the Swifts, the Phillips family, and many others. He was the friend of Thor Stafford, Stephen Williams, Kevin Ramsey, and many others. And this just represents just a fraction of the persons who Julian will have touched with his life. Beforehand, I was able to ask both his children just to reflect on what they remembered their dad by. And this was Jalen's response. He said that he remembered his dad as a loving, caring parent, always nice to him. He gave him good, beneficial advice. He spent time with him, and he always recalled his father to be a very hardworking individual. Trishelle, on the other hand, she said that her dad was very helpful when he was needed. If there was a situation and he didn't have the means to fulfill his role as a dad, he would find some means to ensure that he fulfilled that role. He was very understanding, somebody that you could talk to. He never made a fuss about anything. And you know, we have a culture in Trinidad here that if you don't listen to me, I'll pull out a belt, I'll deal with you. She said, no, not Julian. He will sit and reason with her and give her good practical advice. And no doubt he will be fondly remembered by her for that. One of his friends, Stephen, he mentioned that he was really a true trooper. When there was a time of need, Julian stood next to him. He stood by him to see him through that challenge that he was going through at the appointed time. So it was no fuss on his part to return the favor when Julian himself found himself in need. And no doubt that forms the basis of life. We all find ourselves in challenging situations, and we lean on each other to be able to help us through that challenging situation. I remember some years ago, I was doing some work down in the Westmoreland area, and one of those gated communities. So I was just delivering some stuff. And while there, I heard somebody call out my name from way on top of a building. Person, but you know that Julian as a fella had some speed, within a few seconds, he was down at the bottom, talking to me a bit. And that is when I got to realize the type of work that he did. He was a master at his craft. Gypsum work, ceiling work, you know. He did extensive work in that department. He even did some work for me personally, and I must say, he was truly a very hard-working individual. No doubt he will be missed by all of us, the community, family, friends, and even those whose lives he's touched, whether it's work or even just having a good laughter. But at this time, no doubt, we all feel the pain or the grief associated with the loss of Julian and the loss of a loved one in general, because we all would have lost close family members, friends at some point or the other. But is grief something normal for us as individuals? Well, permit me please to use God's word, the Bible, to help us to appreciate what we are dealing with here now and how as individuals we should reflect on our own lives to ensure that we make the difference where it really matters. For servants of God in the past, they all felt similar to you, Trishelle, Jalen, and other members of the family who feel this grief at this time. Permit me please to read a passage from the book of Genesis chapter 23 and verse 2, and it helps us to appreciate how the man Abraham felt when he lost his dear wife. So Sarah died in Kiriath-Arba, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. And this is the point. And Abraham began to mourn and to weep over Sarah. No doubt we all expressed some sort of grief when we heard the news, whether openly or otherwise. But it helps us to appreciate that it's nothing unique to us. Grief is a natural way that we react to the loss of a loved one. In fact, Jesus Christ himself, he displayed empathy and he provided comfort for his friends when they found themselves in a similar situation. We'll see Jesus' reaction in the book of John chapter 11 and verses 33 to 35. Let's see how Jesus reacted when he got news that his friend Lazarus had passed away. When Jesus saw her weeping, that is Mary, and the Jews who had come with her weeping, he groaned within himself and became troubled. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus gave way to tears. Close friends of Jesus, Mary and Martha, they lost their friend, their brother Lazarus, who was also a dear friend of Jesus Christ. And Jesus gave way to tears. Now think about it. Jesus Christ at this point knew that he had the power and he was going to resurrect Lazarus right there and then. But yet still, he felt empathy for his friends. He gave way to tears. No doubt helping us to appreciate the kind of man that Jesus Christ was. And he provided that comfort for his grieving friends. How much so our loving Creator Jehovah? How does he feel when we go through challenges like these? Well, the psalmist penned these words in the book of Psalm 34 and verse 18, and it gives us some perspective as to how our loving Creator feels for us at this time. Jehovah is close to the brokenhearted. He saves those who are crushed in spirit. At this time, as individuals, family members, you would indeed feel crushed. Your heart is broken. You have lost something very dear to you. But our loving God, Jehovah, is saying that he will be very close to you, especially at this time. And what is he going to do? The 147th Psalm and verse 3, it says, he heals the brokenhearted. He binds up their wounds. Yes, he is going to heal. He's going to take care of that wound that has been inflicted by the sting of death. But this begs a reasonable question. Is there any hope for the dead? What is the condition of the dead? Well, let's reflect a bit back in the Garden of Eden to the creation to see how the opportunity mankind had back then, and if that has changed, and if so, what really is the condition of the dead? Well, we know that our God is a loving God, a God of wisdom, justice, and power. That was never a part of his original purpose for mankind. In fact, if we turn to the Genesis account in the book of Genesis 2 and verse 7, it says, "And God went on to form the man out of the dust of the ground and to blow into his nostrils the breath of life. And the man became a living person." So Jehovah created the man as a perfect individual to live forever on a beautiful paradise earth. And other scriptures in the book of Revelation will help, the book of Genesis will help us to appreciate this fact. But Jehovah also gave our first parents, Adam and Eve, a command. You see, they had to demonstrate obedience and reliance on our loving God, Jehovah. That command is stated for us in the same book of Genesis chapter 2, but we will read verses 15 to 17. It says, "Jehovah God took the man and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and to take care of it. Jehovah also gave this command to the man: From every tree of the garden you may eat to satisfaction. But as for the tree but as for the tree of the knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat from it, for in the day you eat from it, you will certainly die." You see, Jehovah gave Adam and Eve free will. They had the freedom to do as they choose. They were in a perfect paradise on earth. But they had to demonstrate their reliance and their trust in Jehovah God. How did things unfold, unfortunately? Well, in verse 19 of Genesis chapter 3, it gives the ultimate sentence as a result of their disobedience to that command. "In the sweat of your face you will eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For thus you are, and to dust you will return." They were taken from the dust and they were created as perfect individuals. Because of their disobedience, Jehovah told them that they would receive the death sentence. As a result, they will die for their actions. How does that involve us? We didn't do anything there and then. We weren't even around there and then. But the Apostle Paul helps us to appreciate that we were all collateral damage, as it were. In the book of Romans chapter 5 and verse 12, it gives this fundamental truth as to how come all of us become involved in that one act that was done way back in the Garden of Eden. "That is why, just as through one man sin entered into the world, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because they had all sinned." Yes, Adam and Eve, they sinned. They were imperfect. As a result, they could only pass on imperfection to their offspring. It is fittingly illustrated by a baker using a pan with a dent to make a loaf of bread. Every loaf of bread that is placed in that pan would result with that same dent. Adam and Eve, they had no choice but to pass on the dent of sin and death to all of us as their descendants. But is there any hope for us? Well, Jehovah himself, as stated in the book of Isaiah, it gives us a reassuring promise that we are guaranteed that there is hope for the dead. In the book of Isaiah 55, 10 and 11, looking at one of the cycles that we are accustomed with, let's see what is that confidence we have in our loving God, Jehovah. "For just as the rain and the sun pour down from heaven, and do not return there until they saturate the earth, making it produce and sprout, giving seed to the sower and bread to the eater, so my word that goes out of my mouth will be. It will not return to me without results, but it will certainly accomplish whatever is my delight, and it will have sure success in what I send it to do." Yes, just as we are sure that when the rain falls, it saturates the earth, It flows into the rivers and streams, gives us food, water, etc. And then what happens? It evaporates and returns to the cloud. And that cycle continues continuously. Just as sure we have that cycle continuing, is as sure as we have that Jehovah's word, as provided in the Bible, will come true. What is the promise he has given us? In the book of Revelation 21 and verse 4, this is the promise that we all dearly hold to our hearts. And he will wipe out every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. Neither will mourning, nor outcry, nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away. Now, for some individuals, they may think that this refers to life in heaven. However, the latter part of this verse says, after describing the elements that we face today on the earth, sickness, death, pain, it says the former things have passed away. Now, if this was referring to heavenly life, this former things, there was never death in heaven. Persons in heaven don't feel pain and suffer as we do on the earth here. So this is referring here to life on earth as we know it. The sickness, the pain, the challenges we face on a day-to-day basis. The Bible is promising that Jehovah is going to wipe out all these challenges from our faces. No more death. But a question to ponder on at this time is, what really is the condition of the dead? Is the soul that survives something that survives? Or is it mortal, something that could die? Well, again, let's go to God's word, the Bible, to see if we could get some concrete evidence or some answers to such an intelligent question. In the book of Ezekiel chapter 18 and verse 4, listen to this fundamental truth. It says, "Behold, all souls are mine. As the soul of the Father, so also the soul of the Son is mine. The soul that sinneth, it shall die." The scriptures teach that the soul is mortal. It can die. So, reflect on how the older ones used to talk long ago. You may have listened to them talking, and they may be talking amongst each other, and they say, "Boy, I come up the road there, and not a soul outside." Were they speaking about seeing something spiritistic as they were coming up? Or were they referring to individuals who may have been outside doing whatever they were doing? Yeah, they were referring to persons. So that soul is referring to the individual, the person that could die. And here we are today, the death of a soul, the death of an individual. But what really is the condition of the dead? Well, the book of Psalm 146 and verse 4 explains it for us here. It says, "His spirit goes out, he returns to the ground. On that very day, his thoughts perish." His spirit goes out, he returns to the ground, and on that day, his thoughts perish. It's like, let's say the fan we have here. If for some reason you were to unplug that fan, what happens? It ceases to exist, it stops spinning. Similarly, that breath of life goes out of the body, we are simply dead. We have nothing to fear about the dead. In fact, Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 5, it helps us to appreciate something that we all need to bear in mind as well. "For the living know that they will die." Yeah, we know that we will die. "But the dead know nothing at all, nor do they have any more reward, because all memory of them is forgotten." Yeah. We are reminded of that fundamental truth. We know what could happen around the corner. But as for the dead, they do not know anything at all at this point. Verse 10 of that same scripture, it says, "Whatever your hand finds to do, do with all your might. For there is no work, nor planning, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave where you are going. The scriptures clearly identify what happens to us when we die. But then, what hope is there for the dead? This is a morbid truth, but is there hope? Well, there is hope. The book of Matthew chapter 20 and verse 28, Jesus stated here, it says, just as the Son of Man came not to be ministered to, but to minister and to give his life as a ransom in exchange for many. Yes, Jesus Christ, ransom sacrifice. He came and gave his life. So all of us, though given the death sentence, as it were, we have the hope of everlasting life. In fact, there's a guarantee stated for us in the book of 1 Corinthians 15, 22 to 23. It says, for just as in Adam all are dying, so also in the Christ all will be made alive, but each one with his own proper order. Christ as first fruits, afterwards those who belong to the Christ during his presence. Yes, Christ, that is a guarantee we have, that we have the hope of living forever. But being here this afternoon, as difficult as it was for most of us to be here, it reminds us of the uncertainty of life. In fact, in the book of Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 11, listen to what the man Solomon, the wise man King Solomon, he had to say. Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 11, it says, I have seen something further under the sun, that the swift do not always have the race, nor do the mighty win the battle, nor do the wise always have food, nor do the intelligent always have the riches, nor do those with knowledge always have success, because time and unexpected events overtake them all. This fundamental truth that the wise man Solomon penned here, it helps us to appreciate that we may be all living our normal, mundane lives, but because of the fact that unexpected events could happen at any time, and we all know of accidental deaths that happen, we're supposed to ensure that we count the way, or we check ourselves, as it were, on how we live our lives. And the book of Psalm 90 and verse 12, it puts this in perspective by these words. It says, the psalmist was saying, teach us how to count our days so that we may acquire a heart of wisdom. We want to ensure that the way we live our lives is as though we're counting the days. But what do we mean by count the days? Well, let's go to the scriptures again to see why we are all here today, and not only why we are here, but the perspective that we all should have when it comes to our lives. It says in Ecclesiastes 7 verses 1 to 4, a good name is better than good oil, and the day of death better than the day of birth. Better to go to the house of mourning than to the house of feasting, for that is the end of every man, and the living should take it to heart. Better is distress than laughter, for the sadness of the face makes the heart better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of the stupid is in the house of rejoicing. So it speaks here about in verse 1, a good name is better than good oil, better the day of death than the day of one's birth. That sounds a bit strange. We are not all happy to be here. But think about it. At a child's birth, what could we say about that child? He looks like mommy. He looks like daddy. He looks like granny, grandpa. But when it comes to the personality of that child, or who that child is, we really can't say much. However, at a person's death, because of the way they live their lives, there's much that we could say, whether good or bad. But where does it matter the most? Who does it matter the most to in the way that we structure our lives and live our lives? Well, in the book of Matthew 6, it helps us to see that we need to count our days, as it were, or to live our lives in a way that pleases someone. And it's stated in Matthew 6:19-21. It says, "Stop storing up for yourselves treasures on the earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. Rather, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consume, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." We need to make a good name with our Creator, God, Jehovah. Yes, by doing so, we are counting our days in a practical way. And just reflect on, if as individuals, all of us were to live our lives in a way that matters to God positively, do you not think that this will reflect in our community? Crime, violence, all these things will decline. Gone are the days of yesterday when your neighbor was going down the road and they say, "Hey, neighbors, watch your house and the children are heading down in Sawa and come back." We wouldn't do that. In few cases, we could. But generally, as individuals, if we were all to pattern our lives according to God's word, the Bible, and live our lives in a way that it shows that we are storing up treasures in heaven, as it were, no doubt the community will be a better community. As individuals, we'll be able to get along even much better. And we'll be able to live a life that matters. In the book of Proverbs, it's even further encouragement for us to live a life that matters now. Proverbs 27:11, it says, "Be wise, my son, and make my heart rejoice, so that I can make a reply to him who taunts me." You see, Satan has his heart set on each and every one of us to get us to do the wrong thing. It's as though you're always choking us to do the wrong thing. Jehovah is saying here to be wise. Make his heart rejoice, so that he could give a reply to Satan to tell him, "See, that individual, don't touch him. That is one of my servants. That is an individual who is doing what I require of him." So all of us have a role to play to be able to give a reply to Satan. In the book of 1 Timothy, there's a fundamental truth again stated in the scriptures. Because we mentioned earlier on our God, the kind of God he is, a God of love, justice, and wisdom. Listen to what is stated in the book of 1 Timothy 2:3-4. It says, "This is fine and acceptable in the sight of our Savior God, whose will is that all sorts of people should be saved and come to an accurate knowledge of truth." Yes, Jehovah's will is that all sorts of individuals, despite the type of lifestyle that you may live, now we have hope. If we adjust our lifestyles, not to suit us as individuals, but to adjust our lifestyles according to the standards set in God's word, the Bible, we have the hope to get life. That is the promise that our loving God, Jehovah, has promised us. So by reflecting on why we are here today, what should we be doing in the days ahead? Well, 1 Thessalonians 5:11, it states, "Therefore, keep encouraging one another and building one another up, just as you are in fact doing." You see, just as a village, as a community, we came to the need of the Archibald family, we need to continue to do that. And each and every one of us will be going through challenges like this one that the Archibald family is going through right now. We need to come together. And to come together to offer that support to each other. In the book of Proverbs 17, verse 17, it states again, it puts it a different way. It says, a true friend shows love at all times and is a brother who is born for times of distress. Yes, this is definitely a distressing time for the family and friends. A true friend would show love at this time. It's as though you were born to help the family through this challenge. But we need to do that for each other. We need to not only today at the funeral, but also in the days and the weeks and the months ahead. The older ones to provide support and guidance to the younger ones, where we all could assist in some tangible way the family at this time. We look forward to the time when Jehovah will provide the permanent relief for the problem, as stated in Psalm 9, 9 and 10. Jehovah will become a secure refuge for the oppressed, a secure refuge in times of distress. And those knowing your name will trust in you. You will never abandon those seeking you. We all look forward to that time when sickness, pain, suffering, death will be no more. But we need to count our days. We need to live our lives in a way that it matters, not to us as was stated earlier, but to our loving God, Jehovah. We pass back over to Mr. Logan.
Yeah, we want to thank Shubini very much for sharing with us some reassuring and faith-strengthening words from the Bible as we deal with this difficult time in our own way. Again, on behalf of the family, Trishelle and Jalen, we want to thank you. Many of you know Julian personally, and I'm sure they are very happy to see that you made the effort to be here this afternoon. To bring this funeral service to a close, if you open your program, there's one song entitled, song number 151, He Will Call. I want to invite you to sing along. You may not know this song, but you will have the lyrics and the music will be played. But even if you cannot sing, let's pay attention to the yeah, that's it. Pay attention to the words of the lyrics of that song, because it says a lot about the Bible's hope for persons who have died. So when the music begins, if you wish to stand, you can stand, and then we'll just invite Shivani back to the platform.
Life like a mist appears for just a day. Let us just say a word of prayer. For our loving God, Jehovah, you're indeed a God of comfort. And we lean on you at this time, begging you to comfort the family and no doubt the relatives, the close friends at this time of Julian. That is indeed a sting, and we all feel the pain of this sting in different ways. But you have promised to remove that sting for all eternity in due time. So may you continue to strengthen the family, help them to see that there is hope along the way. But we need to be patient. We need to evaluate our lives to ensure that we live a life that is pleasing to you, Jehovah. You are the giver of life, and you are the one, as stated within the pages of your word, the Bible, how we should count our days, the way in which we should live our lives. And no doubt it brings benefit to us, our families, our communities, when we live our lives in a way that pleases you. So may all of us leave here with that fundamental truth, determined to live a life that is purposeful, one that involves you in it, Jehovah. So we ask, please, that you continue to provide comfort to the family at this time, Jehovah, especially the children, Jalen and Trishelle, and the close family members, and who no doubt will be feeling the pain associated with the loss of a loved one. So, Father, please, we beg you to forgive us for our sins as we humbly offer this prayer in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
So some of you may be interested in viewing the body. We're asking you just to don't cause too much of a subject here. We'll just open the coffin. You guys will be able to look at the coffin. Perhaps just wish Trishelle and Jalen all the best, and then exit on one side. We're just waiting for a member of the funeral home to open up the coffin. So just give us about 2 minutes before they come and they open up the coffin, please.
matemática